Good morning. Hi, Happy New Year to all of you out there. My name is Bob Pace, and I'm the host of this show here. It's The Secret How to Fight CPS and Win. And we work out of Vincent W. D. Davis, his law office. He is a licensed family law attorney with a trial background, and he's an excellent attorney, very familiar with getting your children back or any of those kind of matters, other legal advice you need. He also has other attorneys that help you there too. They can be reached at 888-888-6582. There's also a web page that's being printed across the bottom of the screen. That's his calendar, and he'll offer a free consultation for 30 minutes to an hour, and he'll go over the strategies. And if you like what he says, he'd be interested in hiring you, or you hiring him, I should say, him working for you. And so, if you're looking for an attorney, he's the man to get. And this show, by the way, we have guest speakers from time to time. So, any of you that want to talk about your case or ask for assistance or help, I can try to help you. Um, I'm not an attorney, but I am very experienced in matters with the Child Protection Services because I had a case myself with my family. Oh, good, 2015. It took 3 years. And after 3 years in 2017, two of my three children returned. And sad to say that's still not over because my two children are with us, and me and my wife, we go through all kinds of issues that came up during the investigation and the proceedings. You'll find that Child Protection Services, which is a branch of social services is a federal organization that our government provides to all people, whether you're rich or poor, whether you're a citizen or not a citizen, and whether you speak English or not English. It's open to everybody out there, and they offer food stamps through their EBT program, and then they offer also medical through Medi-Cal and Cal Optimum, and that's in the California area I'm talking about. I'm talking about Southern California area. Um, Also, social services will offer you other things like school for your kids and help you find a job and get you on your feet and so forth. The CPS branch of social services primary responsibility is to um, make sure our children are safe in nice homes and they get all the benefits that shelter, clothing, food, and education that be provided by the parents. And anytime there is child abuse or neglect, investigation will be made into the family, and the family could be a lot of ways. It could be a boyfriend, girlfriend, two partners. It could be, a married couple. It could also be a grandmother taking care of the kids, sisters, brothers, and so forth. And it can be multifaceted in there. But uh, they get reports, and how this whole thing works is they get reports from people, and by law, if you're a teacher or you work in the police, fire, um, any of the professional careers, you're required to report if you see any abuse or you hear anything or a child talks to you about something. You're required to report it. Once the reports come in, even though it's alleged, the way that CPS works, you're guilty before until you're proven innocent, which means right away they believe the allegations. So through the investigation process, you have to um, deal with them investigating your family. They can come unannounced. You don't have to let them in. They can't call in the phone. You don't have to answer the phone. and they can send you mail. Now, from my experience, my best recommendation is that anytime you're involved with a CPS matter, you need to have representation. You need a lawyer. You need someone that can navigate through the system, that knows the law on family and knows how to work with CPS. And certain areas are different, but all of them have something in common. And they are there to protect care of your children. And you need to get an attorney. That was my big mistake in me in the beginning. I tried to do it myself. Unfortunately, I had lost my job, and I was at that time an older person. I was 60 at the time, and I was trying to get work. And I'm 74 now, and I had a job, but then they didn't have more work for me, and they used the excuse like, "Well, we're not at work. We'll let you off. We'll give you a call back." Well, that hasn't happened. And I think it's because they look at your age sometimes. They're not supposed to discriminate on age. But anyway, I was out looking for work and trying to maintain the lifestyle that me and my family were afforded at that time based on my income. But I only had enough savings. The mortgage ran out. Oh, I barely could keep it together for the first couple of years. I mean, 2010 when it ran out. By the time 2015 rolled around, I was getting behind my mortgage, and I was forced to sell my home in 2017. Um, the biggest thing that was interfering with my life, well, I actually had two things, and why it became really complicated, and yours can be complicated too, was the fact that my parents, who were up there in the years, late 80s, were slowly dying, and they need to move out of their home into a care facility. They need to sell their home. They liquidated the cash to help pay for the health care for them both in there. And so um, I moved all the things in my parents' home down south because a lot of the relatives expressed interest in the things. My sister expressed interest. And when I arrived to my home, I didn't really have extra room because my home was already have nice things in it. So at first I parked everything on the car apron, but because I lived in a private neighborhood, I couldn't leave the items stacked on there with the tarp over it. They wrote me a letter that I had to move it inside. So then I moved it inside. Some of it left on the porch, some of it was in the yard, but most of it was in the house. It was boxes on top of boxes. And that's where they get you because uh, that could endanger the kids. It could endanger the kids because some of the boxes were stacked 3 boxes high, which is approximately 3 feet high. The kids were older, higher than 3 feet, but that's one thing that was hard in my case. And at first, I thought I could succeed and win them because I had nothing to hide. And so I tried to tell them everything. And like a fool, you never discuss things because sometimes they take things and twist things around. They can talk to your children privately. That's a hard thing to swallow. They want to talk to the children before you can coach them. Not that I would, but they want to talk to them, and then they try to put ideas in their heads. They try to have them play with dolls and say, "This is what daddy or mommy do to you," or they try to think of anything they can to try to find something that could put in their case during the investigation period. And it was really hard because I did not know who was making these reports and these claims, and we found out that was my wife's side of the family. That's the problem. Is sometimes people mean good, but it's detrimental. There was reports that we didn't pay the electricity bill, our kids didn't take showers, they didn't go to school, which is far from the truth. Um, we had all the utilities paid. We always had food in the refrigerator and the shelves, and the rooms were clean. Yes, the house was cluttered with the boxes for my parents' belongings, but it was clean. The yard was in need of trimming and raking and stuff. And you think your kids would help you, but they didn't. They're in school, and the weekends they wanted to play with their friends. But I had to let the gardener go because I couldn't pay for it. And so the yard needed some maintenance to it. So that was really kind of hard. The front gate needed repair work, and I worked on that and so forth. But how they finally uh, got to me before I had an attorney is that they a undercover, I guess the social services, the CPS branch, called the police department and made up some idea that the kids were in danger and they had to go into the house and they had to get the parent down. So the policeman undercover, I don't know if he was probably a detective, followed me. Well, didn't follow me. Was at the school where my youngest was at school. So I had an elementary student, I had a middle school student, and a high school student. Anyway, I pick up the kids, so I'm not working, and I take them to school to help out so my wife, who had some medical issues, could take care of those. I'm fighting a little bit of cold. It's finally getting better, but anyway, he saw me at the drive-in to pick up my little one, and he followed me, and I did not know anybody was following me, and I proceeded to go about 5 miles because downtown where I live is where my wife was getting her hair done. I need to pick her up. Well, a police car going the other direction suddenly made a U-turn and pulled in behind me and put his sirens on. And so I stopped because that's the law. You stop when you're being pulled over by a policeman. And I said, well, how can I help you? And he said, well, did you know you ran a stop sign? I said, no, where you that was at? And then he proceeded to tell me, well, it's back at your school that you came to a stop sign and it wasn't long enough. And I know I counted three, but maybe it was too quick, three or whatever it was. And he said, by the way, there's a gentleman that is a detective that wants to talk to you. And of course, I saw this guy get out of his unmarked car and come towards me. And I said, how can I help you? And he says, I need you to come home. I said, what for? He wouldn't tell me. This is the bad thing about it. They make it kind of hidden and secretive. And so you think of the worst case scenario. I said, I need to pick up my wife and she's going to be left stranded in there. He said, forget about your wife. You're coming home to your house. And I said, my son's with me and stuff. We'll bring him along. And so I went home because I was following the order of the police, thinking that I had nothing to hide and thought the policeman was a good guy. And if I don't have a criminal record or know anything there, I don't think I have anything to bother. So when I show up to my house, there's approximately 14 people. And with the policeman, it's 15 people. I said, well, what's all these people doing here? And my son was hanging on to me, really worried what was going on. And there was um, the detective, the two uniformed officers, um, uh, three social workers representing CPS, and then there was the fire department. They had five of those guys. I don't know what fire they're trying to investigate. And then there was code enforcement. There was three of those people. So suddenly you had all these people here at my house that expressed an interest, and I thought, oh my God, something really happened. And I said, could you tell me what is going on? And they said, we want to talk to you and we want to look at your house. So what they want to do is they want to find things. So all of a sudden, these 15 people come in, and some of the policemen and code enforcers wear combat boots, and we don't allow street shoes to walk through the house because it adds dirt to it. And sure enough, they got on some of the furniture, the parent windows in our backyard, and broke one bamboo chair from their weight and so forth. And they're looking around and measuring the distance on smoke alarms, testing the smoke alarms. They were trying to find a violation, either something from code enforcement, something there they could nail me. And the only thing they could see was, of course, the boxes of my parents' belongings. And I brought my utility bills to show the social workers because they said you weren't paying your bill. I said, yes, I am. Here they are. And I showed them that they were all paid up and so forth. I explained to them about my parents and their belongings. And I said, all smoke alarms work, and there's fire extinguishers here and there. And they said, well, your yard needs to be cleaned up a little bit because it's a little shaggy. I said, I know. I lost my job and don't have funds for my gardener and so forth. They said, your gate is hanging a little loose there. And I said, okay, well, I can tighten up the gate. So they were trying to find something. They really couldn't find anything. And I told them about losing my job and about my parents, and talked with my wife and told her how hard things are looking for work, and we're on a Spartan lifestyle, so we don't have Disneyland passes anymore, and so that was a negativity on that. Well, somehow and I let them do it. I should have fought them on that, but they took my young son and they picked up my other two children at school, rounded them up, and put them into a detention center next to the jail in Orange County. And I was sitting there going, wow. And that's where we saw our children the first night, because we wanted right away to have visitation while they're being held there. And it says it wasn't safe in the home. And I guess they're saying that the belongings of my parents would present a hazard to them. That's why it wasn't safety. So we met later that week to figure out the next step is what to do about the children. Now, social services is supposed to help you keep your children in your home. They're supposed to help with family reunification, but they had alternative motives, and that time I did not know what their alternative motives were. And I might as well tell you now, CPS isn't what you think they are. They're not really there to help you solve the problem or to get help or have meetings once a week to work out your family differences and have everybody back together. They're there to keep your children in custody, to have them go to foster care and be adopted, because they get federal funds and state funds for every child they have in there, and they have a huge coffer to feed. Their office is like the Taj Mahal. It's really unnecessary architecture and beauty and things when you think about how there's so many families that struggle to put food on their table. And the same thing goes with the social worker. They're young, they're not well experienced, they didn't have families themselves, and here they're making decisions on your behalf. And it got worse and worse. The more the case went on, the more we'd show up for visitations, and they would say something. Our children told us about a beehive that was attacking the kids when they went outside to play. They talked about how a lot of the kids had lice and dirtiness, and it's like it was more detrimental to my children being in there. And they said, well, we'll work on a plan. And the plan was to have my wife's sister and her husband take them in. So they took all three children, and they said that'd be fine. And so they said they would take them to school and watch them and so forth. Well, after a month, that didn't work very well, because they realized how hard it is to take care of three children. People think taking care of children is easy. And you're not born in this world with a manual of how to operate your children. You learn from your parents and their mistakes and how you like to see different. You learn from taking classes, if you do take some classes in parenting or children or so forth. And I know I had taken some because I was getting my teaching credential, and they have some classes in parenting and stuff and how to deal with children and things. So I had a background and so forth. And my wife had been a single parent and had a child, um, and that child lived with us when she was, and then at age 24, 25, she moved out. But at that time, she never complained about anything. Um, we didn't have any problem with that child. And now she's a mother with two children, and she works as a school counselor. She's doing quite well. But our three youngest children that were living at home um, were our main concern and so forth. I had to meet with a detective, and he wanted to know everything because he was going to turn on what he found to the city um, attorney, who in turn would file charges if he felt it was necessary. And that's the bad thing, is that he took things I said and twisted around and said things that weren't true, and uh, made my life really hard on that. It made our whole family. Instead of getting together as a family, I thought, the children, the husband and wife would meet with other professionals, and we talk about the problems that they perceive and how we can correct them and how we can maintain them. But they were looking for a place for my children because they didn't feel it was safe because of my parents' belongings in the house. And I said, well, I can put them into storage. I get some assistance in helping with the storage fees. And that would eliminate the clutter effect. And they said, oh, we don't have that kind of thing there. We won't help you. And it seemed like their mission was, how can we have these three children in custody? And they keep them together because I stayed with my wife's sister for a month. And they were taking care of him. We thought, okay, that's definitely a good thing. We can see the children and so forth, and we can visit them and everything. And at first, we didn't have monitored visitations. But as the case went on, it's being stretched out. They're doing the investigation. We haven't had a court hearing yet. And the plan was to keep it with my wife's sister. Well, behind the scenes, I didn't find out then. I found out much, much later that who's making all these allegations was my wife's parents and her sisters. They were falsifying charges that were not true. And that's the sad part because they're very jealous because we had a nice home, a nice job at one time I had, and um, they wanted the children. They really wanted children. So they really made it worse for us. And when people make allegations, social worker believes are true until you prove them elsewise. And so you're already guilty out of the chute. And the they got us public defenders because at that time I I thought public defender would work. I didn't really know the importance of attorney. And I do want to say at this time, we have a really good, capable family law attorney. His name is Vincent W. Davis, and he can be reached at 888-888-6582. And he'd gladly talk to you for 30 minutes to an hour on strategies of how to get your children back and maybe strategies of how they handle your case, and also encourage you that you do call him and you do talk about retaining him. As I say, he's an excellent family law attorney and knows about how to fight CPS and get your children back. And so I still had not contacted him because at first I was still trying to do it on my own. And when my wife's sister and her husband said they could no longer take care of the children. They lasted about a month. And the children were not wild or anything. It's a lot of work. You have clothes to wash. You have meals to feed. They have to be at school, help them with their homework and so forth. And one child was in private school, in high school, and he was taking STEM classes. That's the science classes, the technology classes, engineering classes, the math classes. And and the other child was going to go that same route. The other two were, as I say, middle school. They were still elementary. And it's really hard. I don't know. What I see now, yes, I do things differently. I would have got an attorney right away and not said anything. But the civil case was dragged on because the city attorney decided to charge. And at first, they charged us with 3 counts, one for each child, of negligence, and 3 counts of sexual. And they wouldn't tell you what the sexual was. And I later found out that's a ploy they use so that they can bargain with you to drop those charges, because they are kind of spooky, and settle for something less. And that's what the whole goal of them was to do, again, make money off us and have us go to court. And I had to hire an attorney, and I never, fought there. And he was very limited in what he could provide us. And he certainly did not want to fight. He says, well, if they offer something, we'll see how it goes. So after a year, they offered something. Meanwhile, the social service made headlines out of this. Oh, they're tired for this and stuff. And so they had a court hearing where they said that the children would be put in foster care in a group home. This is foster care, but it's a group home. And there was a family that was running the home. As young people from Midwest, they're raising kids themselves, so I don't know if they had the experience or not. And there's other people that live in the home too, so it's a big, good-sized group home. And so that's where our kids were destined to be there. But we really didn't have a lot of help. We thought our family members would. My mom and dad were the only ones left, and they were dying. And I had two sisters, and one was very ill in a rest home, and the other one is in Hawaii, so not around that much. And so, that being said, um, it was becoming more and more of a very sad case. And we tried the group home, but the group home is run by Boys Town, and Boys Town does not know how to run a group home for Child Protection Service in California. They bid on the job and they left a lot of things out of their bid, so they didn't provide a lot of things. But they told the children not to hug your parents, keep your hands down at your side, not to show any affection, and not to talk about anything. And it was terrible when you saw your kids. They're like robots. We didn't know who they were. And I said, this is family reunification. And we tried to get them to be placed in the tribe. I have American Native history of Lakota Sioux, but you have to be a registered tribal member to have them intervene, and they will take your children, and they are a lot better, and they will help you get your children back. They're not making the money like CPS does. So, that didn't pan out because I couldn't get the registered names where they're at, and I wrote to all the different tribes and so forth. I heard nothing back. I tried to investigate, so that didn't pan out. We had our trial. See, it started in May of 2015. We had our trial in August, and that was pretty much the first step of the trial. Was where they set out the plan. The plan was being a group home, so that all three would remain together. But there's a lot of abuse that goes on. My son, who's in high school and taking those heavy classes, would sometimes have to study past 9 o'clock, and they were saying, lights out, 9 o'clock, I don't care what it is, you can do it tomorrow in school. They had no idea the classes that he was taking, no idea the level of education. Our children were a lot smarter than the group home parents. And, my son was scolded because he drank too much orange juice. And he never did. He just loved orange juice. And so he'd drink it maybe 2 times a day or something. They would scold him. We were a church-going family, and we like to go to church. And they have a thing where the kids are allowed to, 10 minutes into the sermon, go behind the stage and deal with another priest. And they will, it's like a Bible study type thing. But the younger kids, it's in their level of language and everything. And so there was a monitor that followed us, and she was upset because our son went there and she couldn't see him. I said, well, you could have gone up with him. And so that was really, she punished him. And then she noticed that he went to the priest to get communion instead of the layperson. And he felt that only the priest can give communion. So he was chastised by that. And it's just, meanwhile, I was trying to finish everything that the courts were telling me to do. And in the civil matter, they still didn't have the trial yet. I said I'm not guilty, and they wanted to drag it out. And so that went on for about a year when they dragged that thing out. And I was taking anger management class. I was taking a bunch of things. And a lot of people have to understand is what, people think that domestic violence is where you strike people. But domestic violence could be where you verbally abuse someone or you demean them or so forth. And that was a lot going on with my wife and I. That was wrong. that was wrong, and anger management helped me understand that a lot better and so forth. But so these classes were taken and so forth, and then you sit there and you wonder, what can I do? And I was looking for an attorney, and that's when I hired Vincent Davis to work for me. And he was definitely trying to get our kids back. Now, everybody has to have an attorney, everybody has to have a therapist, and everybody's got to have. Our kids had attorneys, so that was three attorneys there, and then we have three more, and there was another one there, and so forth. So each child had an attorney, each parent had an attorney, and social services, the CPS workers had attorneys, and we had public defenders at first, and that was definitely not worth it. It's kind of a joke, which is sad. And so it's really getting really hard. It's no matter, I didn't see the light at the tunnel today. If I knew what I knew now, I would have got Vincent right away, and I wouldn't have to go through and uh, do what I did. It was really, really hard. And so when we got Vincent Davis aboard, he put out a game plan. Um, the group home didn't last for long because then they wanted to have it in foster care, and they kept all making up stories. Anytime we'd do a visit, they'd turn it against us. And when they put them into foster care, they put our daughter into one foster care. They put her son, her older son, I don't know what they did there, but the younger son, they put him in foster care. And the foster care would beat my young son. And that was sad. That was sad because he's being abused and never was abused before. But there's some, terms and so forth. And I think one thing you got to look at is the uh, grounds that they take a child. And I look at that, and I wish I looked at that in the beginning because it's very clear. You, as a parent, if you're abusing your child or not taking care of your child properly, or if someone is abusing your child, or the child or your child are not taking care of him or her properly, so that's somebody else not doing that, and you're not protecting your child from that, or your child is in danger of being abused or taken care of properly by you or someone else, that's the grounds that take away children. And in our case, we didn't have our children not be treated properly and so forth. We did argue, my wife and I, and that was a negative thing. That was a downside, and I learned from that. That's the form of their. Um, so um, the children, uh, were in the hands of another, and they're also involved in Boy Scouts and AYOS soccer. We had to curtail the soccer and just the Boy Scouts. And that's the sad part too, because the Boy Scouts are ruined. Both my boys were working on Eagle, and that was their goal. And one was still in Cub Scouts, going through Cub Scouts. The other one had gone on to scouting, and having a monitor there watch them doesn't make it very pleasant. And as a dad, I'm always involved with my kids, so scouting was ruined by social services. They ruined the whole scouting son and everything, and it hurt too because they learned a lot of things. You learned about camping outdoors and cooking and not tying and building things and earning skills by doing different things and so forth. So it was not getting any better. It definitely was not getting any better. I'm sorry there. I lost my connection. I don't know. I've never had that before. I've done half a dozen of these shows and never have lost a connection, but maybe my internet went down. By the way, this is found on Facebook. This show, how to uh, it's under Bob Pace, how to fight uh, CPS and win. And so if you search on Facebook for that, you'll find the show. It is live. There's other shows for you to look at too on that too. So um, it is a live show. Again, you can call in. It's 888-888-6582. And that's the phone number for Vincent W. Davis. He's a licensed family law attorney. He has trial experience, and he knows how to get your kids back. He knows how to fight CPS and win. So please call him. He offers a free consultation of 30 minutes up to an hour, and he'll talk about the strategies. And if you like what he has to say, you can hire him also in there. So um, you can talk to him about his retainer and so forth. But please call him. There's also a little verbiage at the bottom of this window here that has a web page of where his calendar is, so you can see if he's what days he's free or what days he's available. So anyway, going back here to um, fighting CPS and win, and I encourage all of you out there to really call in because we love to hear your stories. It makes everything else go a lot better if you call in and so forth. And there's a term that a lot of people are not familiar with called parent alienation and dispar arrangement. Now, that has a lot of different meanings, even an attorney has different meanings. But that's where one parent is making the child, making the other parent look bad to the child, and that's wrong. That is uh, that is neglect and abuse. There, you don't ever want to put your children uncomfortable with another parent. It's very hard. I know you're arguing. In our case, is arguing, and sometimes the arguments go better. Uh, the thing that I learned, the best thing to do is that when you have a disagreement and you can't no longer talk, it's going to be coming yelling, everything like that. You take a time out. You say, look, I'm going to take a time out. We'll get back to this, and you walk away from it and do your time out. That's how you handle discussing. And then also you want to set aside time when the kids are asleep to discuss things. And discuss things are hard, and especially when there's no money. Money seems to be a root of a lot of our problems. When you don't work, you don't get income. When you don't get income, you don't no longer can afford a nice home. And then when you're in an apartment, it's it's a lot harder because there's a lot more people living on top of you, and there isn't the space you used to having a home and so forth. So anyway, I've heard the term parent alienation and dispart arrangement, and that's a term that you got to be careful that you as a parent don't make the other parent look bad in front of the children, and so um, that can be there. Now, another one who can have custody rights are grandparents or sisters and brothers. If they're over the age of 18, and most grandparents are, and if they want to raise the children while you guys are working through your hiccups, grandparents are a good source of that, especially young moms and dads. I'm an older dad having children late in life, and that's one of the downsides of having children late in life. My wife is younger, 15 years younger, so it wasn't hard for her to have a child then, and so forth. So um, they look for things to take your child away. And one thing is physical injury. Now, there are a lot of parents do cause inflicting pain. So you either use corporal punishment too hard with the belt or the wooden paddle where it makes welts and marks on the child. That's a no-no. You don't do that. It's best to do Timeouts. Timeouts are the best thing. Whether an adult timeout from a heated discussion or a child that did a bad behavior, you go sit in a corner and think about what you did, and give them a book to read, and they can think about it and so forth. So a timeout is always good things. A lot of times there's a physical injury through sports and stuff, and they will not take away your child there if they have an accidental injury there. Um, Another reason they can take away your child is a child is subjected to willful cruelty. Now, what means that? That if a parent takes hot coffee and pours it on a child to punish them, or mad at a child and they're filling the bathtub full of water and they turn the hot water on, pinch a child, um, those kinds of things, that's willful cruelty or demeaning a child. Have them locked up in a room or in a closet. Punishment should not be it should not be unjustifiable, meaning that you can't be excessive punishment. Um, Children are human beings like you are. You want to treat them how you want to be treated. So you definitely don't want to give them a punishment that is greater than more or less a timeout. Is what the best discipline I find out with children. Another reason they can take away a child is abused. Um, Again, that's through torture or things like that, or exploited sexually. That's where they're used for parents' gratification, or a child is a minor. They're under the age of 18. You as a parent should not be thinking or doing those kinds of things. That is wrong. And brothers and sisters should not be doing those kinds of things. And anytime anybody under the age of 18 is with a adult, they may not be doing anything, it's called statutory rape. They don't have to be in the rape process to get that charge against them. So a child who's under the age of 18 has to be protected. There's laws in this land that we do that. Um, and lastly is a child is neglected by a parent or a caregiver who fails to provide adequate food. And you got to have food in your refrigerator and food in your cupboards there. Clothing, they got to be fully dressed, and it's got to be clean clothing. Shelter, a place where they call their room, their bed, and a place for their toys, not thrown all in a place like that. And then, of course, medical care. They got to have medical care where they got to see a doctor for any of their sicknesses or things like that. And they got to have shelter. They got to have a place where it's dry and warm. So they need a home. And lastly, they need supervision. You cannot leave a 2-year-old or 4-year-old alone in a house to fend for themselves. That again, that will be a neglect of a child if you leave them alone. And a lot of parents, I'm just going to the store and leave their child in a crib and think they'll be okay. No, the child could get something and choke on it while you're gone and things like that. So it's very important. You never leave a child unattended. It has to have adult supervision. And another child can't supervise another child. It's got to be someone over the age of 18, preferably a young adult that knows how to take care of children and is comfortable being around these children. Um, so the those steps or those neglections things are reason there. In my case, I was charged with neglect for having too many belongings. The other day, a woman uh, was charged with false allegations. She was a grandmother, but she was able to win her case because the allegations were false and so forth. And sometimes parents do drugs. When you have minors in your house, you can't do drugs. That's a no-no. If you do drugs, your children will be taken away from you. So I know that, if the drugs are illegal, you don't do drugs. And you don't want to give your children any kind of drugs. Um, you got to be really careful about that. Um, so we talked about that there. Now, um, you're probably wondering what the attorney. Now, Vincent Davis, what was happening was that um, my wife's sister wanted to readopt one of the children. She wanted the young girl, but she had alternative motives, and she didn't disclose that her and her husband had domestic violence, and the social worker knew about this. And the social worker lied on her oath that there was no domestic violence in the home when she knew there was. And so it was really hard, but Vincent able to stop my wife's sister from adopting our child, and he's able to orchestrate so the two boys. But what really set us for a loop was that my daughter, who was 12 at the time taken in, um, said to the was coached by social services to think about adoption. So she changed her name. She divorced her parents and divorced her brothers. She no longer has her brothers, and has a new name and new family. And she did that. I don't know who coached in there because she had parents. I don't know if she needed new parents, anything like that. The only thing that I lacked at the time was the money part, and the parents that she got adopted by are very well off. And so, meanwhile, CPS is paying the all the bills, and they're getting all the money from the federal government, from the state, and they're making a fortune. They're making a fortune off your kids. And you hear about this thing called uh, slavery and how they're making money out of it. CPS is another form of doing that with children, where they make money off your children by keeping them long, and they don't have family reunification. They never did with her daughter. Never once did I ever see her, even with a monitor. I couldn't see my daughter. And my wife at first saw her a couple of times, but then um, she said some things, and they took away her rights. So neither parent could see their daughter, and their daughter was being misled down the road. And it was sad because even in court, she couldn't be seen by the parents. We would go, by the way, court is different. You don't sit in the court where your case is being discussed. You only come in there to sign something or hear something the judge wants to say. You have to sit out in the hallway. It's like a cattle area, and they're trying to bust in cattle in to get slaughtered. And there's no standing room. It's standing room only, and they're just shuttling people from all walks of life back and forth. And the public defenders only can handle 20 cases, and they have like a few minutes to talk about your case, and that's it. And they'll get confused because they think they're defending one case and defending another case, and so forth. So uh, that being said, it's really kind of hard. Um, the public defender that would really help your case, and your case is complicated. That's why I finally had to get a attorney, Vincent W. Davis, to work on my case and get our children back. And he was able to do so, but for whatever reason, he didn't want our daughter because, number one, we didn't have any more money, because it would take a lot of money to fight her daughter that was being adopted by the foster care people, which I think was wrong. Um, and I think when she is growing up, but she's 21, but I think she'll realize how important a real mom and dad are, and parents and so forth. You can't substitute your biological parents. It wasn't that bad of a environment at home, but they really made it. They twisted things, and my Disneyland passes are gone. What am I going to do? I can no longer go to Disneyland. Well, you're not required by law to have Disneyland passes. And so, or the Coke or the chips or the cookies. She didn't like that. She wanted Coke and chips and cookies. And so it was really, 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 really sad. And when I met with Vincent, of course, I told him what I did and all the mistakes, and he said, "Well, that's not going to help matters, and you got an uphill battle." And so, as I say, we got the two boys back, but it's very detrimental. When you go through this, you'll be haunted by this for the rest of your life. It does not go away. Losing your family, are going through it is a hard thing to swallow. The emotion trauma, it's emotional trauma there, and you you care about your children. And as I said, we're not born with a owner's manual how to raise children, but we do our best. As long as you don't do anything illegally and you don't neglect or abuse your children, you'll be fine. You'll be fine taking care of them and raising them. I mean, that's what it's all about and so forth. But a lot of these things. There was another story the other day where a grandmother wanted to get her two grandchildren back, and her daughter got involved. She liked guys that are incarcerated. Well, that doesn't help two matters when you're with Child Protection Services. But she wanted to um, get him um, involved. It's a struggle, and it's a struggle that an attorney was able to write briefs and do appeals and get things happen. And as I say, he won the case to get our two boys back, and that was important to us. But it's sad we didn't get our daughter back. I mean, her birth certificate is locked up. You can't access her birth certificate, and so with her name changed, she's completely eliminated. I still encourage her brothers, to see her, and they still do. But even the court said that she no longer had brothers. When she divorced her parents, she divorces the whole family, grandparents, and everything on that. So um, that really is a really hard thing to swallow when you lose um, your child. I mean, I didn't get a chance to see her do things from 12 on up. I mean, there's things that she'd be doing things in high school, and I missed that completely. So that really is a hard thing there. Now, I want to see if there's something else. I wish I had some questions to answer out there, or someone could. By the way, you can text in a comment, and I can try to answer it. Um, Let me see here. I'm trying to look at my notes here and see if I have there. Um, Child Protection Services is the same across the country. I don't see any difference whether you're in one state or another. I thought maybe it was only because of California, but no. The same things are happening in Pueblo, New Mexico, on the Rosebud Reservation, South Dakota. Um, you know, it's it's definitely a hard thing there. Um, so with that being said, because um, your children are in their custody, they get money, and they get money until they're 18. By the way, as long as they're still in custody, they'll get money, and the money is not small; it's big things. Our social worker had a different Gucci purse every time we saw her, and she had bonuses. She get bonuses, and she didn't mind if she lied or cheated. I could see it on her face how much she lied, and it's hard to believe because you're in there and you think, you know, what you need to do. Another thing I'd like to point out is as you go through your case, there are records, paperwork that's filed on your behalf, and it's at the court where your hearings are taking place. You want to go see the clerk, the court clerk, and she'll give you the documentations of every report so you can make copies of them, and they'll do it for you if you don't have money. And you say a hardship case, you can get the copies. And in the reports, you can highlight them with different colors, and it'll help you find something that maybe they did something wrong or illegal or something like that. It's very important of those records. It's in the record department of the court, and with the records department of the court, it has everything in there. And there's things you may have missed or things you could have maybe had or so forth there. So that's one thing to keep in mind there. Also, you need to really make a diary a notebook or something of everything you do. When you talk to somebody, write down what was said and anything relating to this matter. And if you don't, you forget. Your memory isn't all that great. And so um, I really strongly encourage you to do on that. Now, we did have kind of a happy ending because we got our two boys back. But one son went off to college in his senior year after the COVID. And I guess with the other thing that happened earlier, he just couldn't finish anymore, saw no reason to do it. And he took time off, and now he's gone back to work, and he's happy with what he's doing there. He's trying to make meat, but he got himself into debt too quick. He got himself into a lot of money debt. So I helped him out. I wish, he could pay me back, but he is definitely into a lot of debt there. So I'm going to close now. Again, I want to say this has been um, a hard subject matter to talk about. I want to encourage you all, the listeners out there, to call in, share your stories, and I can help you, with your stories and help you with some ideas and strategies. The number to call is 888-888-6582. And I encourage you to talk to Vincent W. Davis, who is a family law professional attorney, and he has a trial background, and he knows this stuff well, and he will help you get your children back. You go try it. He gives a half an hour to an hour long, and there's a little website that's being printed on the bottom of the page there that you can go and view and see his schedule and see if you can make a time during around his schedule. So I encourage you all to call there. And again, if you get involved with CPS, it's serious. Don't try to fight it on your own. Get an attorney. Do not talk to them without your attorney's consent, and do not disclose or anything in there, and keep track of everything that happens. They can and will take your children away. They're not there. They say they're for family reunification, but I yet to hear a story of a good one where everything came back and so forth. So um, you just can't trust them. Don't trust the police department, which is sad to say, because you think these agencies are protecting our children or protecting us, and it's bad news because they're in cahoots. And the judge in court, make sure you elect it. Now, we have elections coming up. We have the primary coming up now, but in the fall, in November, you want to really pick a judge that is a family law judge. My judge was terrible. He was a judge dealing with property management and car collisions. So he knew nothing about children. He knew about how to do car repairs and so forth. So make sure you exercise your vote and vote in a good attorney. They're not appointed, they're elected. And so we as responsible voters need to elect a good judge, because the judge that we had hardly said anything. We very rarely got to go into court, and it was a complete waste of time. He, didn't really care. He just had so many cases. He kind of moves on there, and it was a sad state of affairs there for that. So I want to thank you all for listening, and if it seems kind of dry, I apologize. It can be very, very dry and to talk about it, but I still find it a challenge. I enjoy giving something back uh, that I have received some help and so forth, and I hope that the upcoming year for you is very successful, and you have happy time with your children and family. And remember, your children are really important, so take good care of them and don't give up. And check back with me. And this is Bob Pace signing off. How to fight CPS and win.